home. People who will watch this recorded later, we are recording this so we can make it available to people who weren't free right at this time to watch. And again, especially to the folks here who braved the rain to come out and be with us tonight. Thinking back to about a year ago, I remember the school district being in a very different situation from where we are right now. We were just coming out of the pandemic, as most people regretfully probably remember. We were looking at 4 key vacancies in the administration that we needed to fill. And you know, the mood in the district was pretty somber. We had some heavy challenges in front of us. But there were good things too. You know, Newmarket, we have a good story to tell. We always have. We're a single town district in a state where large consolidated multi-town districts have become more the norm. We have a dedicated staff who are very committed to our school and to our students. And we have a strong community investment in the school, and there's no better evidence of that than the building that we're all sitting in right now. You know, a $39 million commitment that the voters made to these buildings is a big indication of how much people in this town, how seriously they take education. And lastly, we have had for years a lot of good work in progress on curriculum and our program of studies. So into this sort of mixed situation walked Dr. Todd Allen. I apologize. Superintendent Allen. Yes. Okay. We did a superintendent search, obviously, and we had 3 strong candidates. We had a search committee with a couple of community members who were kind enough to volunteer their time, along with the staff and the administration, and Todd really stood out, you know, among the other candidates. I'd just come on the board at that point, and I remember, you know, looking at the conversation, and here's a guy who spent 36 years in Oyster River, recently retired, and he was working with NEASC, which we were in the middle of doing our high school accreditation at that point, so quite an advantage there. But the biggest thing that struck me about Todd was just how well he knew our town, having worked just to the north of us for so long. He knew the history of our schools. He knew the struggles that we'd been through with the multiple facilities votes over the years. And he knew a lot of the people in the town. He knew a lot of our staff, he knew a lot of our administrators, and again, from just being one town away, he knew a lot of the people here who'd been involved in things that touched Oyster River in the past. So again, we hired Todd just as I was coming on the board at the time, and the other thing I remember was how Todd just jumped in head first. You know, from day one, the thing that he was most focused on was the community engagement, in rebuilding that relationship and that trust between the community and the district administration. Todd has never, to the best of my knowledge, not had an open door to anyone who wants to come and speak with him, whether that's a student, whether that's a member of the staff, whether that's a member of the community. You know, that's how you do it. That's how we made it out of the dark times. And then there was the recruiting aspect, which I thought it just blew my mind. You know, given all that we were trying to fill. And when Todd came on board, it just opened up a different world of candidates who had not been looking at Newmarket as a place to work previous to that. I hope most folks here or watching at home, you know, have had a chance to meet or see Andy Corman and Patty Bonds, who Todd brought in the administration. But, you know, these are folks that I probably felt were inaccessible to us without someone who has the breadth of contacts in this state. And then lastly, the thing that's always struck me about Todd is that he's a leader who leads by empowering others. You ask anyone in Todd's leadership team, and that has expanded quite a bit, by the way, under his leadership. You know, he really believes in bringing great people in, and not to be flip about it, but put a good person there and get out of their way and let them do their job. Support them as much as they need supported, help them when they need help, but don't try to do it for them. And then the last thing that really struck me, having spent 6 years on the budget committee before the school board, was just how strong and collaborative that process was and how focused it was on the community's needs. And not, sorry, you know, the community's needs both in terms of the students and the taxpayers, and finding that balance that, you know, we could put something in front of everybody that we felt good about. So with all that said, the board right now, we are actively considering extending Superintendent Allen's contract. Todd is currently under contract through the end of next school year, the 23-24 school year. That was, you know, a decision that we made because we were at a point where it would have been prohibitive to try to hire another superintendent for next year by the time we were looking at it. But that said, you know, we both, the board and Todd, find that we've got a mutual desire to continue working together and improving. And for that reason, we asked everybody here tonight, and we're going to make, we hope there are a lot of folks watching at home. We're going to make this video available because we did have a very unusual and kind of abbreviated hiring process when we initially brought Todd on, and we really want to make sure we're hearing from the community, you know, all of the feedback and concerns and anything else that people want to bring to the table before we make that decision. You know, that's why we're here tonight. We're here to listen. We would really appreciate it, obviously, if everybody could fill out the survey. You'll see the QR codes on the table. They've gone out with all of the invites. And Patty will literally come up here and shoot me if I don't reiterate more than once that survey we have out there closes on Tuesday, May the 30th at 9 p.m. The survey will be available until then, so please, everybody, you know, get your responses in so that we can hear what you have to say and take your feedback into account. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Superintendent Todd Allen.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. And I do want to just say how much of a pleasure it has been. Actually, we're going to need to turn this mic off because I'm wearing the lapel mic. Hold on. Okay, that should end the buzzing. I just want to say how much of a pleasure it's been to work with this board. One of the things that you often see playing out in communities across the state, oftentimes tension on boards can make it very challenging. And one of the things that I do appreciate is all 5 of them are very like-minded. We work extremely well together, and I think that's been a large part of why we've been able to accomplish so much in such a short amount of time. So I do appreciate all of you for the support that you've given me. I put together a very short 74-slide PowerPoint. Actually, no. I did put together a short PowerPoint, but just to make me remember what I want to tell you. So I'm going to run through the PowerPoint, but please know it's only 6 slides, really. I figured if I threw out 74 slides, you'd go, oh, and then everything gets better from there, right? So first off, I wanted to introduce myself. That is Todd Allen in 1988. Didn't have a beard, fresh-faced, young educator, you know, excited about my career. I had actually just started teaching at Oyster River Middle School. This is actually it gives you an idea of the level of technology yearbooks had back then. It was like literally cutting and pasting and, you know, but you can see somebody typed my name on an actual typewriter for the yearbook. Anyway, that's me in 1988. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I am a graduate of the University of Maine in 1985. Went straight out of the doors of UMaine into the doors of Oyster River Middle School. Taught there for 23 years. From there, became an assistant principal at Oyster River Middle School. Then spent 5 years as principal of Oyster River High School. Then 5 years as assistant superintendent of Oyster River, and then retired in 2021. Quite frankly, out of exhaustion, all the pandemic-related stuff that had been going on in the world, I needed a break, so I thought it would be a great thing to do to spend some time working with NEASC, and I got to spend, actually, I ended up doing an accreditation visit to my own high school that I graduated from up in South Paris, Maine, Oxford Hills High School. It was quite an exciting experience to go back and kind of relive my high school experience. The building is nothing the same as it was when I was there, but hey, life changes. So anyway, that's a little bit about who I am. I did want to, because as Dan said, the process of my arriving here is unusual in that normally when you're committing to a long-term superintendent. There's a vetting process, an opportunity for people in the community to get to know the candidates and then have an opportunity to weigh in. Given where we are, I thought I would treat this as an opportunity to introduce myself much the way I would in an interview process, so you can get a chance to get a sense of who I am. I wanted to talk a little about what do I believe in education. The thing I want you to hear most is I believe passionately that education is a personal thing. You know, every student walking through our doors, every student graduating from Newmarket High School has a personal story, has a particular area of passion, and it's the job of a good educational system to try to find those things, connect them to the interests of the students, and then provide them the learning experiences they need to be successful. One of the things that's always an enjoyable experience for a superintendent is around graduation, and you get to kind of look at what all the kids are doing as they go. And actually tomorrow I'm having the honor of eating lunch with the top 10 over at Pepperell Cove in Kittery. And one of the things that strikes me about the top 10 coming out of Newmarket, keep in mind this is a top 10 in a class of 58, how incredibly accomplished those kids are. I mean, we've got Brown, Dartmouth, UVM, Wentworth Institute of Technology, University of Delaware, and every single one of those kids is coming out with a plan and what they want. Now, one of the things that you learn about in education is that it's great to have a plan, but it's also good to have choices and be ready to pivot. And I think one of the things good education does is it gives choices to kids. And it's just exciting to see the great things that our kids are doing. So kind of my last question here on this slide is why Newmarket? I mean, I think Dan kind of talked about it. I mean, I've spent my whole life, my whole professional life in Seacoast, New Hampshire, and certainly Newmarket I've lived in Lee the whole time, and Newmarket's the next town over. You know, way back when Newmarket was going through their process of trying to decide if they were going to tuition students out, I was the principal at Oyster River High School at that point. So I spent a lot of time over here in your community, meeting with your board, did a couple of presentations to the board as we really tried to understand what the needs were. And just for the record, I support the fact that Newmarket decided not to join Oyster River. I don't think it was the right choice for you at the time. And I think the decision to commit to your schools and do the renovation here and so forth was absolutely the right thing for this community. Because one of the things that really stands out to me as I go around Newmarket is how much pride the community has in the schools. You know, I still go back to in the fall when the elementary school had their spaghetti supper, and there's like 700 people coming to have spaghetti at our elementary school. It's just, it's enormous. And so you have events and people come and they care. And I think, you know, when you start thinking about like what are the elements of a great school system, it's, you know, yes, the educational experience is important, but the table is set by the community, by the parents and the families that send the kids to school ready to learn. And I think Newmarket does a lot of that. And so as I started having conversations with the board about whether I was going to come over here first as an interim and then did I want to stay longer, a lot of the thinking tied into like just the incredible opportunities that are here to really accomplish some really big things. And I think anybody who will listen to me, I tell them, I think there is just a tremendous upward possibilities for the town of Newmarket in the school system, because I think small school system, one town, a couple of minor tweaks and adjustments here and there, and you immediately get really good positive results. And so with that said, I'm going to go into the meat of my PowerPoint, which I promise will be quick, to just kind of give you an idea of what I've been working on. Hold on, I just fell out of my hold on, bear with me. My bad, okay. So as one of the things Dan said is I do believe very strongly in people, and I think the idea of having, you know, strong people working for you is really the key to success. In fact, one of the things I was interviewing a candidate for our vacant ESOL position for next year, and I was just saying to them, like, I think the most important thing I do is hire the right people and then get out of their way and let them do their job. And so as I start talking about these operational accomplishments and other things, please know that these are not me. This is what we've been working on this year. The first one I'm really very proud of, the strategies for hiring and retaining good people. As Dan mentioned, when I started, there were 4 vacancies. I was one of them, and then we filled a principal at the high school, an assistant principal, and then obviously Deb Black, our assistant superintendent, left, and we were fortunate enough that Patty Wands was out there to be pulled in. And so we were very quickly able to, in fact, Gary joked with me, okay, Todd, that's week number 2. What are you going to do with week number 3? But the truth is, good people were out there. It's just a matter of finding them and inviting them to come work for us. And that we've really tried over the course of this year to not just apply that to leadership positions, but also to educational, for classroom teachers. And so one of the things that tickles me to the high heavens is when I have a candidate say to me, well, actually, I applied because it's Newmarket. And we've had a couple of those where people said, no, I didn't apply anyplace else. I applied in Newmarket. So anyway, so we've really worked on trying to do that. How have we done it? We've done a lot of work on salaries. We've done a lot of work on job descriptions. We've done a lot of work on culture and trying to get people to buy in to the idea that we're in this together. And actually this spring we have hired a couple more leadership positions. I'm thrilled. We got 2 exceptional candidates coming to work for us next fall. At the assistant principal, Jessica Spalding, is coming to us from Ellsworth, Maine, a current sitting principal up there, coming down to be an assistant principal in our school. Exceptional person. And then Jay Fitzpatrick, who's the current principal of Prospect Mountain High School, is coming to join Andy Corman as his assistant. So, very strong leadership team. Moving on from there, we've done a lot of work, as has been mentioned, on budget-related stuff. I mean, one of the things I can't say enough about Jana Mellon and how much of an assist she has been to me, because coming into a whole new system with a whole new set of variables, being able to rely on somebody to kind of sort those things out, we've been very effective in coming up with a budget that, thankfully, the community supported at a rate of over 80% to this. On a snowy day, I'll give you only 600 people showed up, but hey, I'll take it. 80% is 80%. Grant funding, I mean, I got to shout out to Patty Wands and actually Dave Riley over here too for finding creative things that we can do to make some things happen which have a very limited impact on local dollars. The playground project, which will be being finished up early this fall. We got a SAFE grant for school security upgrades, and then we also got some grant funding to do a financial software upgrade that's really paying big dividends in our financial office, but really trying to find ways to do that and make some things happen that hopefully don't have as much of a negative financial impact on the district. And then, of course, the communication side of things. One of the things I pride myself on is trying to be as transparent as possible. My door is literally always open. So if you come to my office, you'll see it is literally always open, with the very rare exception that somebody says, Todd, I need to talk to you, and they close it behind them as they come in and they want it to be a private conversation. Although I'll be honest, my walls are very thin and people can hear anyway. So, but we try. But anyway, I do believe very strongly in that. We have tried, thanks to Tim Kremen back there, we've tried using Channel 13, Newmarket School Corner. I mean, all of that kind of stuff is really part of just trying to message things out in a really positive way. Moving from operational stuff to just at the academics, as we've talked about, embracing the NEASC process. I was at a staff meeting at the high school today. They're sharing the school improvement plan that's been developed over here. It's incredible. I know Sean and I have had some conversation about trying to apply a similar school improvement concept to the elementary school as well, but this idea of you gotta imagine what it is going to be, where you want to go first, and then you come up with a plan to do it. Patty has done a tremendous job keeping the UBD work going. We're hoping to be able to publish all the stage 1 templates for UBD curriculum development very shortly. We're doing a lot of work around student supports. Master schedule at both buildings are being retooled with the idea of trying to figure out what is the best way to use the resources we have to benefit the maximum number of kids. And I think there's a lot of really creative work on that. And then continuing on, we've got a beginnings of a literacy program review going on that's really going to pay dividends. And then continuing with the great work that was done by my predecessor and Patty's predecessor, Deb Black, on the math program, and just they're already 1 year into it, but really continuing to support teachers to allow them to continue to do that. I think I might have jumped ahead, but hey, what the heck. So we've accomplished a lot is my general message. And then really as I start to think about next year, because as Dan mentioned, I am under contract through 23, 24. We've already kind of begun to think about where are we going to put our time and energies. The financial software implementation is going to continue. That's going to pay dividends to us literally in the budget process, because it's going to help us better do that and be able to analyze things. It's going to make things better for all our staff, because they won't waste as much time on paper processes on when they want a day off and things of that sort. School security upgrades. One of the great things about the work that Dave Riley has done this year around all the school security stuff is we're constantly evaluating and constantly looking for things we can do. And just in the year I've been here, I can't tell you how many things we've been able to do to improve school security. And to be honest, I don't think anybody can tell. They're just well done, well designed implementations. Again, the installation of the playground will be occurring during the next year. We're continuing on the planning for the courtyard at the high school. We've run into a couple of obstacles on that. Sadly, the architect that designed the renovation, the work that was actually built did not match the original design. So when we went to start planning it out, we just got a disconnect between the design and what's actually there. So it's going to take us a little longer to get there, but we're going to get there. Capital improvement plan, one of the things Phil and I work on, the capital improvement plan committee, is to try to get our heads around what are the long-range needs of the district, so we can really undertake those. We will have a capital improvement plan ready to go prior to the budget season, so we'll be able to talk about that. And then, of course, it never ends looking at policy. And I know policy is not the most exciting thing to talk about, but policy is the rules and the law, if you will, of the district. And if you have rules and law of district that are rigid and do not allow for flexible programming and so forth, they get in your way. So we are looking at a lot of things to try to make the school system work better for kids and for families and for the community. And then really some of the final things, we're in the later stages of adopting a vision of a graduate. One of the things that I really believe strongly in is, one of the advantages this community has is we're one small village community, but if we can get on the same page about what we want, we can target all of our time and energy and resources to getting there. And I'm very confident that by October, we will have we'll be ready to present a vision of a graduate that hopefully the community and the board will be ready to approve, which will give us guidance that we need to, build a better school system. Because no matter how good we are, there's always room for improvement. Other things we're working on, Patty has started some great work around educators and educational evaluation. One of the great things that I'm very proud of is the relationships I've been able to forge with the unions. And they came to me and said, hey, Todd, we hate this evaluation system that we have. We would like one that is more in line with what was growth, with what we see 21st century education to be. So we very quickly arrived at a very common place, and so Patty started a process on developing Portrait of an Educator that will eventually lead to a whole new evaluation process in what I hope will be a much more supportive, growth mindset-oriented approach. We will be piloting literacy programs this fall. There's a committee, as I said before, has been actively involved in it, and they're planning to pilot at least 2 programs, and then out of that, pick the one that they feel is best. That will be hopefully a K-5 literacy program, which is something Newmarket has not had. And then, of course, strengthening middle school model and schedules. And I use the word middle school because I want people to see that word, because middle school is different than junior high. Even though we call ourselves a junior high, that's not who we want to be. We want to be a middle school. At some point, I'll probably ask the community if we want to change our name, because I think it's important philosophically. For those who don't know the difference, junior highs are largely miniaturized versions of high schools. They generally run on high school structures and high school bell schedules. Middle school programs are much more student-centered. They're much more team-oriented. They're much more about integration of curriculum, and that's where we want to get. And a lot of the work that Andy Corman and his team are doing is trying to get us there. And I would say our teachers are very excited about it too. They believe that's where we need to be. In fact, they're saying we've been saying this all along. Just let us do it. Let us make it happen. So anyway, that's kind of what I see us doing a few more things. Continuing on with our review of programs, continuing with MTSS and trying to improve that. And then really the last one, we've talked a lot at the board table about how can we get more good news in front of the community? And I think that going back to Newmarket School Corner, that's really where that comes from. It's like, just, you know, who can't smile when a kid is on camera laughing and enjoying something? That's the vibe we want. We want people to feel good about our schools. And with that, I am happy to take any questions that anyone has. I don't know how we want to do this, guys. Do you want to pass the mic around? How do we? Mic right there. Mic right there? Okay, we'll use that. So if anybody has any questions, would like to come to the mic and share, I am happy to take any question. It doesn't have to be from my PowerPoint. It can be anything that's on your mind.
My name is Bridget Connolly. I live at, I don't know if it's like a board meeting, so I live at 24 Dame Road. I have a fourth grader in the district, and then I have a toddler that's up and coming. Sure. I don't have any questions, and I want to thank the board for giving us this opportunity. I'm a principal in a local school district that is a similar one-school district. And when you get the right person in this position, you have to maximize that opportunity. I'm lucky enough to not have had a lot of interaction with Todd because I'm lucky to have a great fourth grader who doesn't require a lot. But there are indicators all the time about how the school district is functioning when you are an insider to the work. And so I recently reached out because of the loss of the paraeducator at Newmarket Elementary School and how quickly the police department came in to support the staff. As an outsider, I know that that means that there's a strong relationship between our district and our police department, and they are constantly interfacing with one another, which speaks volumes to the fact that Todd has created an environment where communication is vital to what happens within the district. In the span of 10 minutes prior to the start of this event, 4 different people talked about the fact that he gets out of the way and lets people do their work. That is the role of a building administrator and the role of a superintendent. You find the right people, you trust them, and you empower them to do everything they can to help children. And it is so clear that that is happening every day within our school district, and how lucky we are to have that. The other piece in a small district is that the best way to make progress is one person at a time. It's not about grandstanding, it's not about having big presentations, it's about making individual connections all day, every day. And Todd does that not only with his administrative staff, but with students. I have a fourth grader who did the Wax Museum yesterday, and he was delighted to share that Mr. Allen asked him to he asked all the students to recite their speech. It's May, ladies and gentlemen. Our lives are not easy in May as school administrators. For him to take an hour of his time to do that with 50 fourth grader is another example of his commitment to our district. So I really implore everybody to respond positively to the survey that we're being given, and to really endorse the work that Todd has done, and support him to continue this work as we move forward. So thank you for all you've been doing for our community.
That's the kind of question I like. Thank you. I would like to just say, one of the great things about Newmarket, again, small town, I mean, Chief Jordan has been just an amazing, amazing supporter. He and I talk all the time, and a lot of times it's trying to proactively prevent something from happening, and also to throw in the mix Rich McFadden and Gary Gott, our 2 SROs in our schools, and going back to the work that certainly Dave Riley has done around safety, but the school resource officers are definitely on the front line of that too. They are actively helping to review things, and in fact, Rich McFadden has organized a great training opportunity this summer for our leadership team in July to do some more safety stuff. So yeah, I really do appreciate the relationship we have with the police department.
The superintendent gives all the credit to everybody else, even though all the compliments were towards him. That's another example of a really great leader who values the people that work alongside him.
Thank you.
Todd, we've only spoken once, but I won't leave you hanging. So it's no fun. You and I spoke the other day about kind of putting together a path through to serve students.
Yep.
And you alluded to that or addressed that early on as one of the key points. It's an unenviable task to take a small school and somehow put together maps for each and every student. So, and I have a hard time imagining how you would do it successfully. And that's not a criticism, just more,
Sure.
it's daunting. Could you, for people here and elsewhere, could you, I don't know, elaborate, maybe not so much generally, but specifically some of the, maybe the tactics rather than, goals or strategies.
Yep.
That would be a huge help to hear about how that happens, especially in, say, sophomore through senior years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the challenges in public schools is we all have sort of a mindset of how schools are kind of run. In fact, certainly in the time that I grew up and went to school, it was often that industrial complex of like, bell rings, move to math, bell rings, move to English, bell ring, and everything was sort of structured in a way that it was almost a one-size-fits-all approach. And a student coming in, there was a prescribed sequence of courses, and to meet students' needs, the assumption was everything had to be created in-house and provided. When you're a small school, there just aren't enough people to be able to provide for every individual student interest. And so what you have to do is ask yourself, okay, how can you tap into community resources? How can you open doors for kids to take advantage of opportunities that allow them to make choices for themselves that might be outside your walls, but that you can have some kind of control over? So what are some of those things that our kids regularly choose? I'm very excited. In fact, when I started here, one of the first things I learned was that we had just created an ELO position. ELO is an extended learning opportunity, and it's a position that helps coordinate students with experiences outside of school that tap into their individual educational passions and then allow them to be able to earn credit for an experience they're having outside of school with enough structure around it to be able to verify that learning has taken place. And when I came in, Jamie Hayes is our ELO coordinator. At the end of last year, I said, how many of these do we have? And he says, well, there's about 10 kids that are doing ELOs. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's a start. 10 out of 270 high school kids, it's not a lot. This year, we have 32 kids doing ELOs. Now, again, and the reason we have it is because we created this position, and you've got this person out there talking to kids about, okay, you don't have to just take an additional elective class. Why don't we talk about what you're interested in? Let's find something. So this year we've had kids doing, internships in different companies. There was a young lady who was very interested in law who did some work with the New Hampshire ACLU office. And so you're able to find learning experiences that way. So that's one avenue that allows you to, and the longer you do it, the more you find these opportunities. In fact, Tim Kremen and I have talked many times about, gee, I'd love to have 3 kids do an ELO to produce a regular news program in the school system and do that. Well, you don't have to have classroom experience necessarily, but you have to have an expert who can provide that to you. So that's one avenue. Other avenues that we have to look at is one of the things about the Newmarket High School's current program is we have a very high credit requirement to graduate. For those of you who don't know, to graduate from Newmarket High School currently, it's a 28.25 credit requirement. And just to compare that to schools around us, Portsmouth is 24, Oyster River is 22, Hanover is 22. Most schools are 20 to 22. And what happens with something like that is kids are so busy trying to get the credits they need to graduate that there's no room in their schedule to choose something else, like go to SST for one of the great programs that are offered over there. SST is Seacoast School of Technology over in Exeter. And they have great programs in computers and building trades and plumbing and welding and all these great programs. But if a kid doesn't have everything aligned by the time they're a junior, those opportunities are limited for them. So part of what we can do, in fact, we are talking at the policy committee about looking at how we can change our graduation requirements to create more opportunities for kids to have flexible possibilities. Beyond that, as I just said, we have some amazing graduates of this school that are going on to do great things, and I guarantee that they would have loved, and some of them have taken advantage of, but maybe not as much as they could have, is early college opportunities. There are great dual credit course offerings through Great Bay Community College that we can tap kids into. The University of New Hampshire has a program called the CATS program, which for kids who apply and meet the admission standards to UNH allows them to do one course a semester for their junior and senior year. So you could have a kid graduate from high school with 4 college courses under their belt. That's a semester of college. Translate that to, I don't know, $15,000 to $20,000 in a family's bank account. I mean, it engages a student in learning that they're passionate about. So I mean, those are some of the things that I look at. But beyond that, I think it is really, and I said this on the opening day of staff meetings with our staffs. It's like, I believe all the solutions to all the problems we have exist in the minds of the people on our staff. It's just a matter of deciding what we're going to do and then sticking with a plan long enough to see results. And I think there's real possibility there. So to me, we're going to have to invent things for kids because we're just getting started. But this is a community that's very involved. I talk to people all the time. Yeah, I'd be happy to do an ELO with a kid. I'd be happy to take kids on a field experience, whatever it is. And so those are the kind of things that you can do. And then you have to go back, and this is where Patty does a lot of work around curriculum design and so forth. And you have to go back and say, okay, what's the core curricular experience we want all kids to have? And make sure that everybody is getting those fundamental curricular academic growth opportunities. But then beyond that, there's tremendous opportunity to program for what makes kids excited. Because to me, the thing that I hope for is that every kid has at least one thing every day in their school experience that they're excited about and they want to do and they want to learn. Now, for many kids, that may be like, my kid loves everything and all that kind of thing. But I'm telling you, there are a lot of kids that come to school and they struggle to find that meaning. And what we need to do is connect them with those things and then legitimize them as real learning opportunities. So that's kind of, yeah. Other thoughts, questions?
So we did receive some questions that folks would like asked on their behalf. I think you may have answered this one, but I'll ask it anyways in case you want to expound upon it. How will we build a district that meets the needs of all students in a district of this size?
Yeah, it does tie in a lot to what I was just talking about. I do think one of our challenges moving forward is we are a small school system. It's not ever going to be feasible for us to offer the range of courses that a Dover or a Portsmouth can offer. We just don't have the numbers. So we do need to kind of right-size the school, but at the same time, as we repurpose, as we look at what the needs of kids are, the job of teaching changes. So it's not we need less people, we just need people to do different things. For example, you might have, let's say you have a social studies teacher who currently is teaching 6 classes. And we don't have enough students to warrant 6 classes, but we do have 10 kids who want to do ELOs that are law-related or working with a historical society or whatever, and that becomes part of their responsibility. So I think part of it is, as we have opportunities, we repurpose people, we find ways to do that, and then we try to meet those needs.
Anybody else? I want to keep jumping in front of people. It's a big line. Here's another one. How will we build a district that meets the, sorry, I just asked that one. And in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges the district faces, and how do you hope to address them?
Well, every district in New Hampshire is struggling with the financial side of the equation. And I mean, a number of people have commented on the wonderful facilities we now have, but there's an economic reality to this facility. We are paying a bond of $2.1 million a year until the year 2046. And that makes up right now 9% of our operating budget. And so when we start talking about what are we going to do, certainly figuring out ways to deal with that. So it goes back to the incredibly creative ways we're finding grant money to do things without having to expand tax cost. So certainly that's a big challenge. I wish I had an answer immediately to it, other than we just have to be very careful and methodical with our budget and our planning. I think it goes into establishing, a capital plan, so we know what our needs are going to be over the next 5 to 10 years, and we plan ahead for those things. I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. So that's one that I think is a challenge. The other one, which is also a common issue across the region, is just a general pattern of declining enrollments. Pre-pandemic, Newmarket High School had 300 students. Today, it's 200 and what is it on today, Patty? Do you remember 257, 258, something like that? Yeah, it's 10, 12, 14% smaller than it was 5 years ago. Looking at our long-range projections from NESDEC, they're projecting that decline is going to continue, but that's every school around us is facing the same thing. So certainly, kind of those two issues kind of go hand in hand. The financial challenges with the declining enrollment, because then you hear people say, well, geez, how come your budget isn't shrinking equal to the number of students you're not having? But unfortunately, that's just not how schools function. There are certain things you have to give, whether you have 1 kid or 100 kids. So that is a challenge, but there are opportunities we could look at even there. What I look at, declining enrollment's a problem, but then the flip side of that problem is capacity. We have space. So is there a market out there for us to say, 15 years ago, Newmarket was talking with other people about tuitioning our kids someplace else. Well, maybe now we flip the coin and we say, okay, well, maybe we can tuition kids in from someplace else and kind of combine those two things to solve a problem. Beyond that, I think the biggest challenge Newmarket faces is there has been a longstanding issue of the just lack of continuity of leadership. You change superintendents every 2 or 3 years. I feel like we're just starting to get traction. So it's like that is, and so when I go back to strategies to get and keep good people, if you can't keep a team together for at least 5 years, you're just not going to get there. You're just not going to be able to, because every time you bring new people in, you have to retool, reinvent, and start again. So those are 3 that I think are the biggest challenges, and I think they're all solvable. We just have to get creative.
I have a few more, but I think you've answered 2 of them already. So the last one would be, without naming names, what was your favorite interaction you've had with a Newmarket student in your first year on the job?
I have to say, one of the things I enjoy a lot is when I go over to the elementary school and kids come up to me and say, "Hi, Mr. Pine." And I always say, "Well, thank you. It's nice to see you too." And I think to myself, well, obviously if they think I'm Mr. Pine, it's because they think I'm somebody important. So good, thank you. So I take being called Mr. Pine as a real compliment. So that's always enjoyable. Although I have to say, one of the more recent things that I've really enjoyed is with and this is going to sound weird, but with policy committee, we've been doing some work on the policy regarding student representation on the school board, and getting the student government involved, and having a group of student government leaders come and talk with us. And actually, they were so excited and passionate. It was like, this is why you do this kind of stuff.
That's all the questions I have, unless anyone else has a question they'd like to ask or a comment. No? So with that, thank you all very much. Thank you for your time, Todd, and thank you all for coming out, and everyone at home. And again, please fill out the survey, which closes on May 30th at 9 p.m. So,
Hey, can I just do one quick shout out? I wanted to thank Stephanie from Fresh Picks, who did all the pizza tonight. One of the questions, I was at the budget committee Monday night, and one of the things we ended up talking about was Fresh Picks quite a bit, because they were wondering how the contracted service model was. Is the food any good? The pizza you just had is exactly the same kind of stuff our kids get every day, and Stephanie is one of the key people behind that. So just wanted to give a shout out to Fresh Picks, because they do a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.